Morning, friends. As I look back 44 years, because Darlene and I are about to celebrate our 44th anniversary. As I look back in the beginning, I thought, wow, we were just kids. We didn't know anything. And had a lot of bad habits, had gotten involved in things that were working against our marriage and our health. In short, life was challenging. The Lord got us out of the city. We moved from Atlanta, a little place in the country called Mentone, Alabama. And I didn't realize it at the time, but the work in the garden and building that first cabin, it was therapeutic. It was just what we needed to balance our minds out. I mean, it wasn't an overnight process. It took 10 years before the Lord could really turn our hearts to Him. But these simple things in nature, in the garden, and working with the hands, practical things, God really uses those to heal the mind. This is where we live today. Here's a picture of the cabin that Darlene and I built with our own hands, and piece by piece. It took several years, but we have a little place that we call home. It's a cozy place. It's a place of peace, and God that did that for us. And even though it was an adventure building in Mentone and it was an adventure building here, it's a world of difference between our mindset back then and our mindset today. And in the garden too, Darlene was really making progress in agricultural lines. She really had a love for gardening. And it took me a while. She had to jumpstart me, but it took me a while. And here's some pictures of Darlene out in the garden. Been a great joy to work with my wife, growing food, processing food, eating food. That's the best part. Washing the dishes. And it's just part of domestic life, a part that I love very much. After 10 years in the cabin in the woods, after being refined by the Lord somewhat, we felt He was calling us to leave our land, to leave our garden, to leave our home, and to go into mission service. Now, it was a place I'd taken Darlene when she was a patient. She was pregnant. The child died. We met these friends at Wildwood Lifestyle Center and Hospital, Wildwood Missionary Institute. We felt that's where the Lord was calling us to serve. My security was in my home. It was in the things that I had, my possessions, and to leave those behind, it was tough. And as we were in the valley of decision, making the final decision to go, Darlene had a friend. Here's a picture with Darlene and Sandy and me, and her parents' name. Sandy's parents were Max and Sarah. Very, very nice folks. And as we were getting ready to go to Wildwood, making that decision, we were at Sarah and Max's house. And I was in the living room alone with Max, and he had a real care and concern for our future. Just a very loving man. And he asked me, he said, what kind of benefits do you have at Wildwood? What kind of pay structure? What kind of retirement benefits? I said, well, not much. Not much. And as we talked, he was quite concerned. And he told me, he said, look, at 35, it's easier for you to say that you're going to go by faith. But what are you going to do at 65, 30 years from now? What's going to happen? And I told him again, I said, I don't know. I can't see the future. I know somebody that can, but I can't see the future. So I'm just going to move by faith. And Max wasn't a Christian. And he thought that was kind of a weak answer. But it's the only answer I had to give. Because I can't, in retrospect, I can tell you how God has blessed and helped and kept us. But looking forward instead of backwards, I couldn't see it at the time. So we made the decision to go. And for the next 30 years, we worked in health ministry. And at the end of 30 years, when I turned 65, I retired. Well, now it's 30 years later. And if Max were still alive, this is the experience I would share with him. It's about a year and a half ago. I had a terrible toothache. I had a big toothache and a small budget. So I didn't know what to do. I said, Lord, have mercy. And I became aware of an organization called Donated Dental Services, or Dental Lifeline. I looked it up, filled out an application. The questions were, are you 65 or over? were you a veteran, and asked about income and assets and things. And I said I filled it out. And then not long after that, a week or two, I got a call. I answered the phone. It was a young lady named Lindsay. Now, I've never met this lady, never have, but she has been the voice of encouragement for almost a year and a half, because she was the coordinator in this organization that would encourage me and help me as I went through the process of getting dental work. And so she made an appointment. There was a dentist not too far from here named Dr. Lawrence Sable. And I went for my appointment at Dr. Sable's office. My first appointment, sat down in the chair, got my x-rays. They did an examination and asked a lot of questions. And Dr. Sable came in and she talked to me about the tooth, said she may need to remove the crown, see if the root's infected, may need a root canal. Had a nice conversation. And then she made an appointment, I think, for 2 weeks from then. But the problem was I was about to go back to the Philippines. We had some sort of like evangelistic trip planned. And so I couldn't make the appointment at that time. So I put it off a couple more weeks. And I went to the Philippines. And on the way back, I think my appointment was for Monday. On the way back, I landed in Dallas, Fort Worth Airport. Had a flight that afternoon, landing in Huntsville. I get home Sunday night. And I had the toothache. And you know, when I got to Dallas, went to get on the plane, Darlene was with me. They had delayed our flight. I thought, well, that's okay. If I get home by midnight, I can still make the dental appointment. Then it was delayed again and again. And later that evening, they canceled the flight. And as they rebooked the flight for the next day, it was very clear, apparent, that I wouldn't be able to make the appointment. Yeah, it was one of those moments where, it's hard to describe. So I called Dr. Sable's office the next morning. I think my appointment was for 1 o'clock. And I told the lady, I think her name was Kristen, what a nice lady she was. I talked to Kristen. I said, look, I can't make it. 1 o'clock, I'm not going to be there. She said, can you come at 3 o'clock? The office closed at 3, I think. She said, can you come at 3 o'clock? I said, I can't come at 3. I'm not going to get back to Huntsville and get home, and it's not going to work. And she said Dr. Sable was going on pregnancy leave, and this would be her last day at work. And when she told me that, dear friends, my heart sank. Because my tooth was... So what I did anyway, I went home, made an appointment with a dentist, local dentist, and I was going to have the tooth pulled. And that was on a Wednesday. Got home late Monday night. Tuesday I made the appointment. I was going to go to have the tooth pulled on Wednesday. And Tuesday afternoon, phone rang. It was the voice of encouragement, my friend Lindsay. And she told me she'd found another dentist that is willing to help with the tooth. And I ended up going to Jackson, a big city, saw a dentist there, gave me a root canal. And as I was leaving the office, I got a copy of the bill, $1,400. Of course, it was donated by the dentist there. And I walked out and I thought, God is good. This is an act of grace. When somebody does something for nothing, it's an act of grace. And it's a humbling thing, too, to accept care, because I was always used to paying my own way. It was very, very humbling for me. It was difficult to accept something for nothing. Dear friends, if we don't learn that lesson, we can never go to the kingdom of heaven, because nobody deserves it. Anything we get as far as eternal salvation is the work of grace. And these lessons I was learning. This time the education, the classroom wasn't the garden. It wasn't building skills, working with my hands. In this case, it was real life lessons in a dentist office. And I got plenty of them. And so I went and got the root canal. And then after Dr. Sable came back from pregnancy leave, I think it was about 3 months later, I had an appointment with her. And I went, sat down in her office, and she sat down, she looked at my teeth, and she told me that I needed a crown over the root canal. I needed 2 crowns over here, I needed this tooth filled, and I needed that, and I needed this, and she said, you're going to be seeing a lot of me over the next year. And when she said that, I just could not believe it. And I thought, you know, if Max were alive and I could answer the question, what are you going to do in 30 years? I would have told him that the Lord sent me to a kind, missionary-minded dentist who did the work in my mouth and did it as a service for God. And I was really, I had almost a life-changing experience in that little dental office, because every time I would sit there and receive this dental ministry from Dr. Sable and her group, Victoria, her assistant, Kristen, and Lauren, the dental hygienist, the whole group of 6, I would just sit there and think, you know, God has been so good to me. I need not worry. My security is in Christ, and He takes care of His own.
In His time, not ours, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So I thank God for how He's led my life. Psalms 23, verse 6, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. My dear friends, may God give you the security that comes from above, and with it a peace that passes understanding. Have a blessed day.